Dear friends, we are today, Sunday, May 31st, the day after the holiday of Shavuot, beautiful celebration, receiving the Torah. And we came out of the holiday into the difficult news that we are watching and listening to all over our screens, the papers, about what's going on in America. But there was a terrible tragedy, no question about it. George Floyd was killed for no reason. There will be investigations to understand the extent of what happened, but definitely a tragedy happened. But that's not really what we woke up to. What we woke up to was where America is on fire. Cities throughout America, there are protests, but it's not just protests. There's looting, there's setting fire to cars, there is all types of damage that is happening. Minnesota, the place where it happened in Minneapolis, is in very serious condition. I was listening to people from LA who around the corner from their houses, stores were looted, broken into, and all other types of incidents happening. This is going on across America. I live in Canada, Montreal, but I'm an American. I'm a proud US citizen. And watching what's happening got me thinking about what should be the reaction when something terrible happens, a terrible tragedy happens, and when someone gets killed. And obviously racism is playing a role in the death of this person. And it's a community, the blacks, that very often feel picked on because of their skin color, and perhaps because they are very involved in crime on a higher level than some other people, maybe due to their circumstances and their status in life. But yet, the real question is this behavior of protesting through looting, hurting people, stealing, does this have any place in our society? And for this, we get inspiration directly from Torah. Actually, the Torah was given to us, and we just celebrated the holiday of the getting of the Torah at a time when there was no real morality, there was no real rule of law. Yeah, there were societies who had come together and had some basic agreements of how they're going to live with each other, but yet some of the sort of moral laws when it came to murder and kidnapping and stealing and adulterous relationships and lying, these were things that were not etched in stone at all. And people used it whatever was worked for their benefit or whatever they felt at the time. And at the end of the day, the strongest one lived. And the Torah was coming to us to give us a clear set of absolute morals and behaviors that are acceptable and unacceptable. And two wrongs do not make a right. If something terrible happened, you cannot just go take the law in your own hands and say, I will do what I want because I got to express rage. I remember a few years ago when Japan had a terrible tragedy where, though the citizens were suffering a lot, no one went and looted stores. No one went out there and all of a sudden started to break windows and just damage. The idea of doing whatever you want because you're angry and upset has no place in a proper society. And the Torah is very unequivocal and very clear that even in the most harsh situations, this is not the way we behave. You know, I remember reading, and I followed the Holocaust, read many, many books, met many survivors, heard their stories in detail. And from a number, I heard how after the Holocaust, where they lost many members of their family, they were in concentration camps themselves, and sometimes, and some of them were given a gun or an opportunity to kill a Nazi, not to save their life at the moment, to take revenge. And most did not take up the opportunity because the tragedy, as harsh as it was, and most of our survivors carried that difficult experience for the rest of their lives, and sometimes they harbored it inside and it was too much for them because they didn't think anyone can understand what they went through. But that never led to now we're going to kill randomly to let off some steam. This is never a Torah way. This is never a Jewish way. I was in the Crown Heights riots in 1990 when a black child was killed by accident. But all of a sudden, outside influence came in and turned it into a pogrom. And New York City has a very fine police force, but they were told by the mayor's office, as we know very clearly, Mayor Dinkins at the time, let them let off some steam. If it gets out of hand, we'll step in. And I was on the streets when the police were standing and doing nothing, sometimes hitting back against the Jews who were trying to protect themselves, not letting these thugs let off steam. This is not the Jewish way. And when Mayor Dinkins came by the Rebbe as he was running for election not long afterwards, and he said he wants to win to be able to help bring together two people under one God, and the Rebbe said to Mr. Dinkins, I am sorry. There's no two people under one God. There's one people under one God. That's where the problem begins. There is an underlying racism that exists in America that has to be dealt with. And we're not going to go into understanding where it stems from, why it hasn't been dealt with, even though there's been civil rights. But two wrongs never make a right. There's no place to vent your rage by hurting, by looting, by stealing, and by anarchy. There is a proper process. And if the process is not working, protest. Don't give up, but never by taking the law into your own hands and just creating anarchy. And as Jewish people, we always learned that we don't sit back when we see injustice. We try to step up and do something. And there's a moment when Rabbi Lau, the former chief rabbi of Israel, when he was still a young rabbi in Tel Aviv, who had come to America right after the Yom Kippur War, and he had a meeting, an audience with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe asked him, Rabbi Lau, please tell me, what's the mood in Israel? On one hand, the Yom Kippur War was a tremendous victory for Israel, but also was a tremendous defeat because Israel did not strike first. They lost many people. It was the worst war in terms of losses. Many families were affected. So it was a bittersweet victory, which for many people, they never learned how to live down that victory. And it created a lot of the politics we have in Israel today, the right and left. And what's interesting was the Rebbe was telling Rabbi Lau, so what's the mood in Israel? So Rabbi Lau exclaimed in Yiddish, he says, Mizakt, the people are saying, was wird sein, what will be? Like, where's fate going to take us? We won, but we lost as well because so many of our loved ones were lost. And the Rebbe, Rabbi Lau describes, became very serious, leaned forward as the Rebbe would always when he became serious, he wanted to give across an important message. And he said, please tell the other people, tell those people who are saying, was wird sein, what will be, that a Jew never says what will be. We say, what are we going to do to make a change? So yes, when something bad happens, we have to be out there to ensure that change happens, that within the law, terrible things, racism, murder, police acting with brutality does not happen. But at the same time, to just throw our hands up and say, we feel bad, let them do whatever they want, this is never a proper way. It does not do justice, not for the people who are being looted. It doesn't do justice for the people who are looting or being incited to loot and steal because they're never going to learn that there's proper justice and they can build a very strong life built on justice and proper ways because they're being taught that the only way to make noise, the only way they think they're going to get further ahead is by breaking the law. In the same way, like the Palestinians for a long time have been taught that the only way that the world will recognize them is if we make trouble. But what's happened over the many years since 1967, they haven't gotten any further. They are worse off than they ever were because that's not the way to move an idea forward. That's not the way to move justice forward. Peacefully protest, gather the people together to make a point, stand up for justice in the right way within the structure that was made by the founding fathers of America, but obviously following the principles of the Judeo Torah. And this way, justice happens for everyone, for the winners and the losers, because everyone recognizes that there's only one way to live, only one way to move forward, only one way to expunge the negativities and to make sure society behaves normally. So America's on fire, but it will not burn down because ultimately the too many people that believe in what's right and want to behave rightly, that it will prevail. But very sad to see those who are being incited by others, usually from outside of their communities, who have nothing invested in their communities except to make points and except to gain points and to gain something for themselves, that they're the biggest losers. Because if you don't learn the right way to do it, you'll never get anywhere. So stop saying, let fate take over. There is nothing left to do. To say, what are we going to do to create the right environment for the right things to happen and let peace reign in America and everywhere around the world. And just like now, we're going through a difficult time, and many people are sitting in their homes, tearing their head out of their hair out of their head, not knowing what to do. But we are not going to become anarchy. We're not going to create chaos. We're going to follow and do things the right way and push when we feel that perhaps governments are not taking the right steps. Push, discuss, push the agenda, let it be spoken about, let it be protested in the ways through news, medias, etc. But there is a way to make it happen. And that way is the only way that will prevail. That's what the Torah taught us. A moral society is a society that will endure. But a society built on anarchy, built on just the whims of some people who want to make points, will not endure. So we wish you a great day and only blessings and good things and peace for America and the world over.